In an Echuca boat explosion. A policeman risks his own life to save a trapped driver. A teen crashes a car she stole in a syringe holdup. And taking it to the streets for the kids.
This is 9 News with Joe Hall.
Good evening. There's been an unbelievable escape and rescue for a speedboat driver whose vessel exploded during a race on the Murray River near Echuca this afternoon. The 63-year-old sustained burns to 20% of his body. Jacqueline Felgate reports.
In an instant, the boat becomes a deadly fireball, a person leaping from the burning vessel and into the Murray River.
This baby's on fire.
As the blaze engulfs the boat, the driver, Queensland racing identity Noel Griffin, struggles to free himself, eventually managing to roll off the front and into the water. Onlookers at the Southern 80 boat race could only watch on in horror as the 2 water skiers and injured passengers floundered.
Holy Christ.
63-year-old Griffin sustained burns to 20% of his body, including his arms and back. A helicopter pilot who was filming the event landed nearby, rescuing the badly injured man and flying him 65 kilometres to Echuca Hospital. Ironically, the boat was named Blazon. Mr Griffin was the first to compete in the main event of the day when the explosion occurred near Turrumbary. More than 100,000 people were at the event, which is billed as Australia's largest ski race. But it has a tragic history. In February last year, Melbourne man Tim Driver was killed during a tandem ski event. And in 2006, a 38-year-old New South Wales man was being towed at high speed behind a boat when he lost control and died. Noel Griffin has been transferred to the Alfred Hospital in a serious condition. Jacqueline Felgate, 9 News.
Well, Georgie, the SES says that in the state's northeast of Victoria, so Yarrawonga and Rutherglen, and also over the border in Barooga and also Malwala. They say they are the towns hardest hit. We've had caravans overturned, roofs ripped off buildings, power lines down and also trees down as this tornado, as the Weather Bureau is describing it, hit those areas at about 8 o'clock last night, causing widespread damage. As you mentioned, there are several injuries. At least 19 people were taken to hospital. One man so seriously that he had to be airlifted to the Royal Melbourne Hospital. Ambulance officers say that he is in a serious condition with a fractured pelvis and also possible abdominal injuries. Now, this tornado, the SES says, really caused damage over in the New South Wales side, first in Barooga, where they tell me the post office has its roof off. So also the local pub, the golf club as well, also has its roof off. They're also telling me there was a report of a car that was being driven down the main street that was picked up and flung onto its roof. Luckily, the driver managed to be rescued there and treated. In Mulwala, the SES tell me the main problem there was caravans being picked up and flung around, with some injuries occurring there. But also in Yarrawonga and Rutherglen, there is widespread damage as a result of this tornado. As I mentioned, 19 people have been taken to hospital, but there are several other people, even up to 80 people with injuries that didn't require hospitalisation, that are also being treated.
All right. Those pictures really tell the story. Christine Ahern, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much. At 30RC, at least 19 people have been injured after a string of tornadoes roared through Victoria's northeast and southern New South Wales last night, causing widespread damage. For more, we're joined by Today reporter Christine Ahern. Chris, how bad is it on the ground?
Well, Georgie, the damage is quite widespread after these series of small tornadoes, as the Weather Bureau is describing it, hit these areas at about 8 o'clock last night, leaving a trail of destruction. We've had trees uprooted, roofs ripped off buildings, power lines down, caravans and also cars flung about. As you mentioned, at least 19 people have been taken to hospital for treatment. One so seriously, one man, he had to be flown to the Royal Melbourne. He's in a serious serious condition with a fractured pelvis and also abdominal injuries. Now, the areas that were most affected were Rutherglen, Yarrawonga, Coonamoo, and over the border in New South Wales, Barooga and also Mulwala. The SES tell me in Barooga that the local post office, pub and golf club no longer have their roofs. They have all been ripped off as a result of this severe weather system. Also in Barooga, a driver was lucky to escape. They had to be rescued after their car was flipped over onto its roof in the height of this storm. In Mulwala, the major damage there was in the caravan park as they were flung about in this wild storm. The SES say they are being assisted by fire and rescue. They have called in extra crews for assistance as this clean-up will continue for some time to come. Georgie?
Yeah, ferocious weather indeed. Christina Hearn, thank you. At least 19 people have been injured after a series of tornadoes swept through northeastern Victoria and southern New South Wales at about 8 o'clock last night. Amateur footage has emerged of the twister carving a path of destruction.
Oh my God! Look at the tornado!
Residents are waking up this morning to survey the damage. Caravans were overturned, roofs were ripped off homes and buildings damaged.
It was a bit frightening, you know, we were just looking at it thinking, oh yeah, it looks pretty cool outside, it's nice and purple, and then it just struck, it's like an ominous glow.
The SES has responded to more than 60 calls for help in the region.
2 people are fighting for their lives after being injured when a string of tornadoes tore through Victoria's northeast and southern New South Wales overnight. Today's Christina Hearn joins us now. Christine, one heck of a night. We understand at least 19 people were hurt.
Yeah, that's right, Lisa. 4 people injured so seriously that they had to be flown to Melbourne by air ambulance. As you mentioned, 2 men are fighting for their lives. A man in his 50s is in the Royal Melbourne Hospital in a critical condition with abdominal and pelvic injuries. Another man in his 50s is in the Alfred Hospital with head injuries. A couple in their 70s was taken to the Royal Melbourne Hospital with fractures after it was reported their mobile home was flipped over onto its roof. And another man in his 40s was also taken to hospital. He's got spinal injuries after a tree fell onto his car. Now, these series of tornadoes left a trail of destruction when they hit the New South Wales Victorian border towns at around about 8 o'clock last night. The towns most seriously hit are Rutherglen, Yarrawonga, Cobram and Coonamoo. Over the border in New South Wales, Barooga and also Mulwala really got the brunt of this storm. We've had roofs ripped off buildings, trees uprooted, power lines down and also minor flooding. There was a lot of rescues that had to go on after trees fell on cars. There's even a report that a driver had to be rescued after the car they were driving flipped onto its roof. Luckily, he was managed to be rescued and treated at the scene. In Barooga, the SES say the post office, the local pub and also the golf club no longer have roofs. They have all been ripped off as a result of this severe weather system. The SES have been assisted by fire and rescue and also, of course, ambulance officers. They have been calling for assistance from nearby areas into those affected towns. They are waiting for a little bit more light as daylight starts to break here in Victoria to assess more damage. But obviously this clean-up is going to take some time, Lisa.
It does appear to be the case. Christina Hearn in Melbourne, thank you. George.
2 people are in a critical condition and 17 others injured after a series of tornadoes and powerful storms hit northeast Victoria and southern New South Wales overnight.
Yep. Oh my God, Mum, it is a tornado. It's like, yes. Whoa, that is insane.
As daylight breaks, the full extent of the damage is becoming clear. Caravans have been overturned, roofs ripped off homes, buildings damaged, power lines are down and trees have been uprooted.
So we've always had fears with this house having a massive gum tree out the front, and then for the gum tree to really just hear that snap. So basically, you know, it was just fear.
The SES has responded to more than 150 calls for help in the region. Thank you very much, Lisa. 2 people are fighting for their lives and another 17 have been injured after a string of tornadoes tore through Victoria's northeast and parts of southern New South Wales overnight. Today's Christina Hearn joins us. Chris, what do we know about the people who were injured?
Well, Georgie, 4 people were so seriously injured that they had to be transported to Melbourne overnight by air ambulance. And as you mentioned, 2 men are fighting for their lives. A man in his 50s is in the Royal Melbourne Hospital with pelvic and abdominal injuries. Another man in a critical condition, also in his 50s, is in the Alfred Hospital with head injuries. There's also a couple, a man and a woman in their 70s, that were taken to hospital with serious fractures after their caravan was flung over in this wild storm, and another man in his 40s was taken to the Alfred Hospital with spinal injuries after a tree fell onto his car. There was also numerous other people that suffered injuries from flying debris, but paramedics say they were able to treat them without taking them to hospital.
They were very severe storms, weren't there? Was there any warning, any indication that they were coming, Chris?
Georgie, residents had little to no warning that this string of tornadoes was heading their way, and it caused widespread damage. These tornadoes hit at about 8 o'clock last night in the Victorian New South Wales border towns. The towns most heavily affected: Yarrawonga, Bundalong, Rutherglen, Mulwala, and also Barooga and surrounding areas. There were roofs ripped off buildings, power lines down, trees uprooted, drivers trapped in their cars that were hit by trees and also debris. There was a lot of injuries, as I mentioned, caused by debris and also minor flooding. In Barooga, the SES says the local post office, pub and also golf club no longer have roofs. They've been all ripped off, as well as many houses in those areas severely damaged as a result of these string of tornadoes. Now it is daylight. The SES is out searching just to make sure that there is no one trapped in the debris. One SES spokesperson saying they've never seen injuries like it as a result of a wild storm. Georgie?
It was absolutely destructive. All right, we'll leave it there, Chris. Thank you very much.
150 teams have competed in the 7th annual Barry BHAG ski race on the Murray on the weekend. Echuca's Brian Griffin starred on his home circuit, helping guide Queensland boat Burnen to victory.
They gathered to honour a mate and a legend.
Barry BHAG many years ago used to ski race with his family and all the rest, and this race is actually in memory of Barry and all the efforts he used to put into ski racing over the years.
Reigning champion Team Hellraiser was the first boat to depart Deep Creek Marina, but as the countdown to the race began, it turned out to be a moment it'll never forget.
2, 1, go! Elm Street, next boat away.
And just like that, the day was over within the first minute thanks to a transmission malfunction. The team then joined spectators on the banks of the Murray, including members of Barry's family. One of those was Barry's son Craig, who says his family appreciates what the Moama Water Sports Club has done for them.
Very privileged actually to be part of this day. It's a really good day.
Being the club's family event, there was plenty to keep younger attendees busy, including face painting. But on the water things were heating up, and with Hellraiser out of the way, Queensland racer Burnen took out this year's title. Club president Stephen Robson says it's the ideal event for those wanting to compete in the Southern 80.
It's actually like a really good warm-up race for all the guys ski race throughout the season. They all love coming here.
Nathan Curry, Win News.
This has been a Win News presentation from Win Television, Australia's largest commercial television. This is Win News.
Tonight, all the fun, fashion and festivities from the Bendigo Cup. Echuca CFA celebrates a milestone. And mixed reaction to a new national drought plan. Echuca's CFA brigade is still awaiting word from the state government on a start date for the construction of the town's new fire station. It comes as the community gathers to help the fire brigade celebrate its 140th anniversary.
Echuca CFA captain Mark Hooper knew the brigade was an integral part of the community, but he was blown away by the show of support at the anniversary celebrations.
People have come from near and far. We had some people that popped in that were on holidays from Poland, so we can say we've captured people from quite a distance.
Pakenham Street was blocked off for the party as the celebrations began earlier than expected, with attendees keen to take a trip down memory lane. Inspecting appliances dating back to the 1800s, CFA Operations Manager John Cutting says they show how much fire safety has progressed.
We've come leaps and bounds, and that's really good for our personnel to make sure that they are able to operate in a very safe environment in what, fires are pretty dangerous, and as long as we can get our people home, that's really important.
And then, as he cut the birthday cake, outgoing Mayor Kevin Simpson brought up the issue on everyone's mind.
I wish for a new fire station.
We hope that we can get some funding for a new fire station and maybe get into it in the next 2 or 3 years. That'll be really well appreciated.
While funding has been announced, the state government is yet to put a timeline on construction, saying the process is continuing. Nathan Curry, Win News.
More than 700 competitors have taken part in the 20th running of Kahuna's Bridge to Bridge. The event raised around $12,000 for the Royal Children's Hospital and the Kahuna District Hospital.
This year saw a new format with the triathlon held on Saturday night, and the change was a hit with the athletes.
It's a great weekend, this Bridge to Bridge, and the way they've now spread it over Saturday and Sunday gives me a chance to come down and have a go in the triathlon last night and then have a go at the run, which I sort of trained for.
This year also saw warmer temperatures, but that didn't bother Olivia Elwood, the first woman to complete Sunday's run.
Love it. Yeah, I love it. Hotter the better.
The event started as a swim 20 years ago, and it was this leg that saw a tight finish on the weekend. Determined to back up last year's win, former Kerrang swimmer Carlia Marsh was out in front for most of the race, but became locked in a battle with Melton's Jason Forbes with about 800 metres to go.
Bumped back into the leader who actually got taken around the opposite island to me, so it was a bit of a struggle between the two of us to get to the finish, but he did a great swim and I was just happy to come in second and be the first female across the line.
Used to taking part in beach swims, Forbes was rapt he was able to handle the different conditions.
This was a lot flatter than beach swims, but it was a lot longer as well, so I reckon beach swims would probably be a lot easier, but it was good.
Nathan Curry, Win News.
This is Win News.
Tonight, a man's body yet to be identified following a car crash near Echuca. A plane crash victim remains in a critical condition in the Alfred Hospital. And community spirit rises in Charlton. Good evening, I'm Bruce Roberts. Also tonight, a man's body found at a Bendigo sporting ground. A man killed in a single car crash near Echuca overnight is still yet to be identified. He was travelling east in a car along Mount Terrick Road when it veered off the surface, hitting a tree and catching on fire.
The charred remains are almost unrecognisable. Only a solitary rim, flung from the wreckage and stopped in its tracks by a tree, remains intact. The crash has left one man dead, and last night police held fears there may have been more casualties.
At this point of time we know we've got one deceased. We don't know whether there was any other occupants in the vehicle.
Police say the car was travelling along Mount Terrick Road, west of Echuca, at around 5:45 last night when the incident occurred.
It's drifted off the road to the left and into a large gum tree. The vehicle's caught fire.
CFA crews from Turrumbary, Lockington and Pine Grove attended to put out the blaze. It was half an hour before a team from Echuca Moama Search and Rescue could approach the vehicle to recover the man's body. And while the scene was clouded in smoke, the incident was shrouded in uncertainty, with police at a loss as to how it happened.
I've got the crime scene unit coming out of Bendigo to examine the vehicle.
The investigation is now focused on identifying the man. It's taken this year's road toll to 236, 12 more than last year. Nathan Curry, Win News.
And pacing returns to the Gunbower after 7 years in the making. Varangi has won the 2012 Gunbower Pacing Cup, with the event held at Gunbower for the first time in 7 years. The Cup has been held at Echuca since its home track was closed in 2005.
With the cut of a ribbon, harness racing returned to Gunbower, and the town's racing club president, Roger Brereton, couldn't contain his emotions.
Our Gunbower club was very excited to be back racing on our own track after 7 years.
Caught up in the fanfare was Safely Shut, the first horse to enter onto the track in 7 years, with first race driver Donna Castle satisfied with surface conditions.
It's nice, it's big, it's open, it's actually quite flat, so where if you're racing at Shepparton and Bendigo, they're quite cambered, so it felt quite different actually racing on a flat turn track.
Racegoers agreed, turning out in big numbers. Racing Minister Dennis Napthine says it shows the government made the right decision in returning the Cup to where it belongs.
They've fought long and hard to get their harness racing back. Paul Weller promised to return harness racing to Gunbower, and I'm pleased as Minister of Racing to deliver on that promise.
But the star of the day was Cup winner Varangi, with winning driver Greg Sugars admitting he doubted their chances.
When we had so much traffic around the last turn, I sort of started to doubt whether we could get there in time, and it probably wasn't until halfway up the straight that I was confident I was going to get there.
Nathan Curry,
and
Win News.
Turning back time in Swan Hill. The 5th annual Pioneers Week is underway in Swan Hill, while the festival, which celebrates the pioneering history of the Mallee, drew a good crowd on the opening weekend. Organisers say the best is yet to come.
It's a cherished fixture on the Pioneer Settlement calendar, and the opening weekend of Pioneers Week proved popular. Old favourites including the Piap, horse and cart rides, and even a penny farthing rolled into gear, while the trusty pianola churned out a tune. Around the corner at the Blacksmiths, there was plenty for day trippers to see and do.
A wonderful opportunity for youngsters and young people at school to come down and experience a little of the old world and learn a little from people who are passionate about some of the old crafts.
Away from the settlement, and the Antiques and Collectibles Appraisal Day, held at the Swan Hill Town Hall, drew many enthusiasts and their prized articles. From crockery and cutlery to porcelain dolls and portraits, experts Vanessa Crew and Adam Truscott dived into the history, rarity and estimated value of them all. But the fun doesn't end there, with big ticket events including the Beat the Boat Fun Run, woodchop competitions and tours of the Murray Downs homestead scheduled for this coming weekend, rounding out the annual event with a bang. Britt Dieterich.
I'm Bruce Roberts. First tonight, the CFA was called to an out-of-control grass fire in Echuca this afternoon. Crews took 2.5 hours to control the blaze, which stretched 9 kilometres and threatened homes. Authorities say the fire may have been sparked by overheated brakes on a passing train.
The series of spot fires took hold along the railway line next to Anderson Road about 12:30 this afternoon. A 9-kilometre front burnt between 50 and 70 hectares of grassland.
So those spot fires have eventually all joined up and threatened a number of houses on the east side of the train line running south out of Echuca.
With temperatures in the low 30s combining with westerly winds, the fire moved east towards the Echuca airport.
The airfield was under threat, but our firefighting crews helped protect the airport and the assets, aircraft around there.
No one was injured during the blaze. The only casualty was a burnt hay shed.
At the moment we've got about 20 tankers. That's about 100 firefighters estimated at the moment, and we've got a few more inbound, and we've got aircraft also en route.
Authorities say it's possible overheated wheel bearings from a passing train may have sparked the fire. Google Beatty, Win News. A crowd of almost 10,000 enjoyed 3 days of live entertainment from under the red gums at the Echuca Moama Riverboats Music Festival. The sold-out event featured a lineup of Australia's top musicians.
Cockatoos and riverboats and things that don't cause pain. A toast to poetry.
Festival goers had good reason to raise their glasses, with 3 days of Australian music, food and wine to enjoy by the banks of the Murray River.
A lot of happy faces.
We've already had some terrific performances by Tim Rogers, Gosling, a wonderful group called the Bombay Royale.
From Bollywood to rock, it was entertainment galore with live music from 13 of the biggest names in Australian music. And Echuca Moama proved to be a popular setting among the crowds and performers.
Absolutely brilliant, like the whole atmosphere and the artists and the wine and food, and just brilliant.
Being amongst the gums and people being able to sit in the shade instead of being in some big outdoor open area where there's no shade, it's gorgeous.
I've got to tell you, it's probably one of the most beautiful places I think I've played at. It's a great vibe.
The event attracted people of all ages with a variety of music and entertainment, and artists are already looking forward to performing at next year's event.
I love the family environments when you come to the festivals like this. It's great. The kids were all around the front and by the end of it all up on stage, so it was a really nice vibe.
Pammy Kokoris, Win News.
Tonight, plans for Kangaroo Flats Aquatic Centre put to the council. Creswick's new GP clinic opens for business. And Swan Hill frocks up for the annual Winter Carnival. Perfect weather has greeted thousands of revellers at the three-day Swan Hill June Racing Carnival. Billed as the biggest social event on the River City's calendar, it saw restaurants and accommodation houses booked out, while trackside the fashions impressed and the champagne flowed.
They crowded into Swan Hill for the big 3 days. Punters, socialites and everyone in between, enjoying some fun in the winter sun for the region's most glamorous weekend.
Today's been fantastic. Started on Friday being Ladies' Day, hence no voice.
On the track, the racing was fiercely contested, as was the Fashion Stakes trackside. All the while, the champers flowed. Cheers! In the betting ring, the results were varied, from those breaking even.
I have backed a few winners in a few places, so it's fairly successful so far.
To those completely dashed for luck.
No good today, mate. I've lost it all. I'm done. I'm finished.
While away from the gambling and the horses, it was those other fillies on the fancy.
What are we here for?
The girls!
The girls!
The girls!
Yeah!
When you look this good, you have to be here for the ladies.
In the marquees, reunions were the order of the day, with one Tiger reunion making plenty of noise.
Yellow and black, we're from Tigerland.
Over 3 days, 8,000 patrons have flooded to the Swan Hill Racecourse. Organisers say it's by far the biggest June racing carnival yet.
Accommodation sold out, has been for some time. Restaurants booked out, has been for some time. So it's really exciting for our local retail outlets and everyone in general.
Britt Dieterich, Win News.
And when Win News returns, it's full steam ahead at the Echuca Steam Rally, and drivers hit the dirt at the Mallee Rally. Sydney's Brad Prout has taken out the first round of the Australian Off-Road Championships, held in conjunction with the 39th annual Sea Lake Mallee Rally over the weekend. It's the first time the national event has returned to Sea Lake in 13 years, while in the Victorian Championship division, it was Matt Hanson and Lee Wells out in front.
It was all about records at the 39th annual Sea Lake Mallee Rally. A record crowd, record entries and a record number of competitors who actually managed to complete the gruelling 425-kilometre course around the salty plains of Lake Tyrrell.
It's all dirt. Some of it's fairly damp and other parts are dry and dusty. It's fairly rough terrain. These cars are running with lots of suspension and they handle the terrain really well.
2011 champion South Australia's Aaron Habe was back again, looking to make it 2 in a row.
I've been doing this off and on for about 16 years, and this is my this car here I bought probably 3 years ago.
While of the locals, it was Andrew McClelland across the line first, finishing 5th overall.
I've got out to some national events before, slowly progressed up from Class 3 up to Pro Light now, so getting faster with the age, a bit older.
Famous for its testing conditions and remote location, the off-road rally lived up to all expectations as drivers and spectators alike got down, dirty and dusty in the Mallee.
The Mallee Rally is always a great track to race on. There's nothing like it, and the Sea Lake Club here do a great job.
Britt Dieterich, Win News.
And when Win News returns, young professionals tackle the barriers in agriculture, and thousands flock to northern Victoria for festival fun. The Swan Hill and Bull Oak regions are winding down after a long weekend full of activities. The Swan Hill region enjoyed its annual food and wine festival, while the Bull Oak Shire hosted this year's Maitreya Festival, which was used to promote the need to save Green Lake.
There was plenty on offer at the Swan Hill Pioneer Settlement across the long weekend, but most attendees were there for two reasons.
The wine and the food.
While unique performers entertained the crowds, the festival's main aim was to promote the region's produce, and it proved a hit.
Oh, awesome. It's really, really good. Enjoying the music, everything.
Very good, very nice. We've been too hot, but we've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Meanwhile, at Sea Lake, people travelled from across the country, flocking to the Green Lake Reserve, all in the name of peace and love. Forced to move the Maitreya Festival from the central Goldfields Shire, attendees didn't mind the change of scenery.
Maitreya Festival, yes!
Police have raised concerns over the safety measures put in place by festival organisers, but the Bull Oak Shire has praised the crowd's behaviour. It wants to make the festival an annual event, declaring it a huge money spinner for the region.
There's been a lot of activity in Sea Lake itself, and people haven't been too shy about spending their money in the town, which has been fantastic for us.
The Green Lake Committee was encouraging attendees to reach into their pockets or even donate bags of ice to help fill Green Lake, as its pipeline has a leak in it.
We've had tests and everything done, so we've got to wait till the results come back. So hopefully it can be repaired.
Nathan Curry, Win News.
This has been a Win News presentation from Win Television, Australia's largest commercial television network. This is Win News.
Tonight, 3 motorists taken to hospital after a pile-up near Echuca. The Sea Lake community up in arms over Westpac's decision to quit town. And concerns state government funding cuts will increase homelessness. Good evening, I'm Bruce Roberts. Also tonight, changing public attitudes to disability during Cerebral Palsy Awareness Week. A 33-year-old man was flown to the Alfred Hospital and 2 others suffered minor injuries in a 3-car crash near Echuca last night. Emergency services say the occupants were lucky to have avoided more serious injuries in the crash on the Murray Valley Highway.
The white ute had been travelling east about 10 kilometres from Echuca when it stopped to turn right into Scott Road just before 5 p.m.
Second vehicle travelling the same directions failed to give way and failed to manoeuvre around that vehicle and hit the rear end of the white utility you see over there.
The Hilux was flipped upon impact. At the same time, a blue ute was heading in the opposite direction when it was hit on the driver's side. The driver of the offending vehicle was taken to Echuca Hospital, suffering severe facial injuries, and was later flown by a fixed-wing air ambulance to Melbourne's Alfred Hospital.
The second occupant of the other vehicle appears to be okay at this stage. She's been taken to the Echuca Hospital just for observation.
Echuca Police, Echuca and Echuca Village CFA, Echuca Moama Search and Rescue Squad and a fleet of 4 ambulances attended the scene, which closed the busy highway for more than an hour.
At this stage we've got to go and speak to the driver of the offending vehicle and find out exactly what's happened.
A 3-year-old girl who was fully restrained at the time was also transported to the Echuca Hospital for observation, suffering no obvious injuries. Elizabeth Nuttall, Win News.
This is Win News.
Tonight, Central Victorians shine on the opening weekend of the London Games. La Trobe students raise their voices for marriage equality. And Echuca Moama gets the winter blues. The Winter Blues Festival has wrapped up for another year, with music fans from across the country flocking to Echuca Moama for the weekend. Organisers say the event is continuing to grow and they want it to rival the biggest blues festivals in Australia.
The fans came for one simple thing.
We come for the blues, baby. Come for the blues.
Winter Blues Festival organisers always try to make the annual event bigger and better than the year before, and with 3 more venues and 30 more performances, they certainly succeeded. The event kicked off with the Blues Boot Camp, and tutor Sarah Carroll says she loves teaching and playing with aspiring musicians each year.
It brings the whole town together as well as the outlying communities, because they've all come to watch their kids play, and we couldn't be prouder.
From then on, the blues were in the air across Echuca Moama, with music lovers rocking out from street performances to headline artist Dallas Frasca. With attendees struggling to find accommodation, hotel owner Paul Jarman says the festival is becoming the region's biggest attraction.
Last 5 years just got bigger and bigger. It's turning out to be one of our premier weekends.
And the festival committee wants to go even bigger next year.
I understand that the Winter Blues Festival in Echuca Moama is the largest blues festival in Victoria, certainly the largest west of the Great Divide in New South Wales, and rapidly catching up with some of the others that are better known, perhaps like the Byron Blues Fest.
Nathan Curry, WIN News.